Hey, we are about to break down and show you, go into the future of what sales and marketing looks like on this online platform, right? You probably watched the previous video that started talking about LinkedIn's buyer first selling. And if you're on this video, you're either in marketing, sales, or just want to understand how this new digital realm is coming together, right? And like we talked about in the previous video, in the 1960s, the telephone came out and it revolutionized this new way of doing sales called cold calling, right? But when it first came out, there were no rules. It was the wild, wild west, right? The outlaws. No one had defined it yet. It was so new. That is what we're entering right now with this virtual era, right? This virtual selling era, this buyer first selling era, or value based selling, all going at the same component. LinkedIn calls it buyer first. Now, here are the five broken down. We're going to break down, just because these are so important, each one individually in separate videos. So, number one, learn then define, right? Right off the bat, my biggest takeaway here is that it has to be about the customer. It's not about us. It's not about the profit. The customer always has to come first, right? Now, we've read that in sales books, but I think it's taking it to a whole nother level of being personalized and being authentic and providing value up front, because they have so many options now. Now that we're all getting to this online marketplace, your buyer has other options, right? And depending on what type of content we're putting out, we have to make sure we're actively listening, right? Not hearing, but listening. Now, a big part for me about learning then defining, right? I look at it like the fact that we are the problem solver. We are not a salesperson. When I'm in any sales call or meeting, I am trying to remind myself at all times that I don't need to sell anyone, right? What is this person's legitimate challenges or problems? And can I legitimately solve them? And if so, how can I give them some value right now? So they can kind of get a taste of what it might be like working with me, right? And this is what we do time and time again, even in our follow-up campaigns. It works extremely well. Now, any typical conversation, or we're going to talk about the discovery call or intro call, right? Now, we've talked on LinkedIn, or we've talked on Instagram, or Twitter, right? In the DMs, it doesn't matter, Facebook groups. Now, when we're getting on this first call, it's very important to remember that we don't want to treat this as a sales call unless we've already pre-qualified them beforehand in the messaging that this is going to be a sales call. Now, a really good way is to hop on for a quick 15 to 20 minute intro call. And right at the beginning of those calls, I make sure I tell them, this isn't a sales call. This is an introductory call just to get to know each other as professionals or as creatives, as whatever, professional gamers. It doesn't matter. Now, once we're doing that, I'm going to usually start by asking the questions, right? And they could be, so did you grow up on the East Coast? How'd you get into insurance, right? What's your largest challenge today? Where do you want to be in 6 months? Now, I'm obviously asking these in a very broad sense. It's very specific once I'm talking to the customer or the prospect. But we have to ask these levels of questions. Quality questions lead to quality responses, right? And the better we understand where they're at and where they want to go, the better we can provide them the right product or service, right? Now, knowing your customer, we're on this online realm, right? And we have the opportunity, and before any sales call, you should be doing at least 10 to 15 minutes of prep, right? Looking into their socials. Now, for me, I immediately go to LinkedIn. Then I go into our CRM to see any correspondence that our team has had with them. Do we have a phone call logged? Anything to have that context. I'll look at LinkedIn on the professional end. And then if I really want to get to know this individual, I might even look at their Facebook. Now, don't be weird. Don't send them a friend request if it's your first time talking to them. But Facebook's nice because sometimes the profiles are open and you can start to see a little tad bit of their personal life and maybe what they value. Oh, they love to go, cross-country skiing, 3 times a year in Colorado. Cool. I might subtly bring that up, right? And we need to learn. And what is all of this coming to, right? Learning about their problem before we solve it, right? And if we don't ask enough questions, and if the questions aren't specific enough, right? If you are a business coach and I'm trying to sell you on a B2B sales system, including leads, right? But I ask you, do you have a team of 50, closer to 50 or 100, right? But anyone that's in business coaching or consulting knows almost always you have very small teams, or it's one man or woman teams, right? So it's just not relevant. And I've actually seen this on calls where if you ask a question that isn't relevant, it just shows you didn't do your pre-work, right? And that takes away from our credibility. So this is really, again, all about learning then defining, right? It's about the customer. They have other options, and to provide maximum value is to come into each call as a problem solver. Now, I'm really excited because in the next video, we're going to talk about the buyer first principle number 2, share readily. We'll see you on the inside.